Welcome to Sip with Summers, the podcast where we talk about sex, intimacy, and pleasure. Because someone has to, and let's be honest, it may as well be me. I'm your host, Jennifer Marie Summers, board certified sexologist, certified sex coach, menopause coach, and your favorite inappropriate friend with a microphone. Around here, we cover everything from why is my libido ghosting me to is it normal to fantasize about pizza during sex? Spoiler alert, yes. So grab a drink and let's get into the good stuff because pleasure is your birthright and awkward is my love language. Let's spill, sip, and say the things most people whisper. Welcome to the show.
Today's guest is Dr. Laura Juergens, a desire gap specialist helping couples navigate one of the most common but least talked about challenges, wanting different amounts of sex. She blends science, somatic work, and real life experience to help people reconnect with their bodies, their desires, and each other. Laura, I'm thrilled to have you here today. Welcome to Sip with Summers.
Oh, thanks so much. I'm super glad to be here.
Yes, it's going to be a really good conversation today. And I would love to just jump right into it if that's okay with you.
For sure.
Okay, awesome. Why do you think so many people have low libido right now?
I mean, I think a lot of it is culture and modern life. I don't actually think that it's dysfunctional the way that people often think about it or are told to think about it. And I don't think most of it is medical. In my experience, a lot of it is cultural and relational. So, and what I mean by that is we're trained to be disconnected from our bodies by a culture that prioritizes productivity. We also have loads and loads of women who have been growing up, and men too, who have been impacted differently. But all of us are growing up under patriarchy, which is essentially, there's a lot of sexism and it's telling women and girls that we need to be afraid of our bodies or ashamed to be sexual, that we're whores or sluts if we have sexuality, and that it's dangerous. The patriarchal and religious infrastructure telling us that sex is actually for male partners and that it's more about prioritizing their pleasure. I can't tell you how many smart, capable people I get in my office who are feeling guilty that they're not having sex for their partner, even when they don't want it for themselves. So if the sex doesn't feel like it's for you, why would you want it? And then I think boys get socialized to be so disconnected from their emotions that the intimacy and the emotional connection is often lacking. And that has its own weight, right? That carries its own weight. And you have a lot of men who feel really performance focused and who are looking for validation through sex. And it's causing a lot of anxiety. And anxiety and stress are the enemies of desire.
Yeah.
Here you have it. Now we have low libido all over the place.
Yes, I see that a lot in my practice too, like this performative doing this for our partner. It's something checking off a list. And I'm curious, in your experience, I work a lot with midlife women, being a perimenopause and intimacy coach. Do you see it show up differently in midlife women where that desire maybe is, oh, the hormones have changed, so that part of my life is over, or is something else happening in your experience?
Yeah, I actually think something else is happening, but people are interpreting it exactly what you said. They think that because they don't have as much sort of spontaneous horniness, spontaneous desire, or that new relationship energy isn't basically you're on drugs when you're on new relationship energy. It's like a cocktail of brain chemicals that overrides. And oftentimes women, so the research shows women actually have fewer orgasms in new relationships, but are hornier. But so they're hornier, they want more sex, but they're having less satisfying sex. And eventually that goes away. And now if you don't figure out what you actually want and how to have satisfying sex, and you're just sort of like, okay, now I'm just not spontaneously horny anymore, then they're saying this part of my life is over. But it doesn't have to be. There's a whole nother option there, which is to figure out what you actually turns you on, what you actually need to have the most pleasure in your particular body, and make sure you get that. And so it doesn't have to be over, but I hear a lot of people think that because their desire has gotten more responsive or because it's gotten more elusive, because they've never really figured out what turns them on, they think
Mm.
it's just gone.
So if it's not broken, what's actually happening?
Yeah. So in my experience in midlife, there's a few things that can be happening. Well, let's acknowledge that hormones have changed, but all that typically does is take away that spontaneous desire.
Mhm.
It doesn't typically take away responsive desire. It can. And so it's worth getting them checked out. But a lot of what's happening too is people in midlife are stressed out. They're really having a lot of burnout. They're having a lot of other hormones coming on the scene, cortisol, adrenaline, all the stress hormones that are
Mhm.
shutting down desire. So it's not necessarily that you're just getting older and you're going through perimenopause when that's happening, or if your body doesn't feel good, or if your vulva's dry, all that stuff. Yeah, absolutely get it checked out. But a lot of the other stuff that's happening is that people are overwhelmed. They're not feeling emotionally connected to their partner. They've been living like roommates. They're not getting the foreplay or like the flirting that they need. There's no pilot light on in the relationship.
Yeah.
So then the oven's cold. So a lot of times that's what's happening. And then the third thing I see happening a lot in midlife is that people are over the performing.
Mhm.
And I think that's actually a really good thing. But a lot of people experience that as sort of just shutting down. And sometimes I think what's happening, what I help people with a lot is moving past the passive no, because
Mhm.
people just start saying, okay, I've been doing stuff for somebody else and I want to stop doing stuff for somebody else. But instead of actually owning that boundary and learning how to put it out there clearly and talk about it with their partner, they just withdraw. They've just got stuck in this passive no. And you got to be able to say, actually, I don't want this anymore. We need to talk about this. And then you got to figure out what you do want, because I do think it's kind of a disempowering place to be, is just withdrawing from your relationship and your pleasure because you don't want to perform it anymore. The not performing anymore is great, but the withdrawing is a kind of a hole to get stuck in.
I see that a lot all the time where people really get stuck in their heads with these like negative thoughts, really, of my body doesn't work anymore. My vulva's dry. I don't want it like I used to. And I see a lot where women who were in spontaneous desire, where they're just like, for the listeners who don't know, it's like spontaneous is, I'm just ready to go. Let's go right now. A
Yeah, it's
lot of
just like I'm
midlife.
wandering through the kitchen and I just got really horny.
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Yeah. And, responsive desire is what a lot of midlife women find themselves in, where erotic things begin to happen and then they begin to get in the mood. So, for people that are stuck in their heads in this way, what's maybe the first step to get them beginning to be more in their body again?
Yeah. Well, I think you just hit it exactly, which is that the need to get out of your head and sort of walk down from the attic of the mind, is how I call it, into the rest
Mm,
of the house, like the whole rest of the body. And a lot of times that disconnection from what our body actually wants and what our body needs is has been going on for years. So I think that process is one that needs to be really respected, because we do want to go gently through that. And that's kind of a huge focus of my practice. That's what, I have a lot of free content around, is getting out of your head and into your actual body in a way that feels okay to you, that feels safe to you, because people are afraid of it. They're afraid of what the truth is there. They're afraid they're going to encounter truths in the body that they can't ignore. And a lot of times people are afraid that they're just going to want to get out of their relationship, even, or they're going to want to
mhm,
burn their whole life down. And I think most of the time that's not the case. You don't have to be as worried about that. Sometimes if your relationship is really truly harmful for you, yes, you will encounter a truth in your body that says, get out. And you kind of need to. So maybe it's worth encountering that. But most of the time, right? Like it's a taking this gentle process of starting to actually tune in to what is really true in your body, because your mind will tell you all kinds of stuff, like all kinds of lies about things, shoulds, about how you should be different, about how you're broken, all this stuff. None of that is true. But your body's going to tell you the truth. And so I think step one is really having the courage to start listening to it and to finding, I have resources, you probably have resources, other people have resources to really start connecting with what's true for you instead of listening to some random internet sex advice or like guru guy bro out there. Any sort of this prescriptive stuff, like really instead thinking about what's true for you and what you need in order to feel alive. Because that's what we're talking about at the end of the day is like, what helps you feel alive?
Yeah, I always like to say we're human beings, we're not human doings. So it's like, how can we be more embodied?
Uh-huh. Absolutely.
Now, I'm wondering for someone listening who is maybe thinking, I wonder if I might be stuck in my head and it feels really scary to be in my body. What shifts for people when they do get back into their body and stop living inside their head?
What's possible is, I think, a really deep sense of rest, joy, and connection that you can't have otherwise. Like you can feel safe in a way that you can't feel safe when you're not in your body. Because the whole reason that people get out of their body is often a trauma response, right? And you don't have to have had big T trauma. You can have little accumulations of trauma. Even just living in modern society has its share of traumas.
Agreed.
And we've learned early on, sit still, pay attention to, wait until recess to run around. We started early in life disconnecting from our bodies, and that was the way to be acceptable. And we felt like if we did connect to our bodies and what was real for us, we would be punished. And that's true in schools and for kids a lot of times. And you need to learn how to do both, right? But as adults, we've usually gone way too far on one direction. And we've forgotten the relaxation and the safety and the actually following what's true for you, your own authentic self. It's okay. You're allowed to be you. When you let yourself be you, with your body will tell you what you like and what you don't like.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's not what you want. But if you listen, sometimes it's like, well, my body really wants a nap. And do I have time for that? I better do it because otherwise my brain's going to be mush anyway. Sometimes it's not what we want, but it's a beautiful way to live. It's a really empowered way to live. And it's a place where you can really, truly experience connection with other humans and sexual connection and aliveness with yourself in a way that you can't when you're not really present in your body. I mean, even just the orgasms you can have when you're embodied, way better.
Yeah,
Self-reported
agreed.
as an N of one here. I don't know if you want to join me, Jennifer, but orgasms you can have when you're fully embodied and really present, way better.
I find my rose really helps me be embodied because I can't focus on anything else when that thing is latched on.
I tried one of those. It wasn't my favorite, but everybody's got their own jam.
Well, I mean, we're not here to talk about roses, but I will just say that I've done a lot of research and development on the best roses. And the ones that I think suck, which might be the one you have, I call it Operation Rose. It's like flat with a little hole in the middle of it. And you're like trying to find your clit, and it's like, like, ah. So yeah, we can talk about that later, though. That's some good stuff. All right, I'm getting sidetracked. So I did want to ask you, you mentioned having ADHD and being very head driven. So how does that impact your own desire and connection?
Yeah, for sure. So I do have ADHD. I tend to have like kind of the hyper focus kind. I get really focused on things, but then sometimes I can't really, I just have too much stuff going on in my brain. So my brain is a very busy place. And before I knew I had ADHD, I used to try to manage it with bottles of wine, which was not the greatest plan in the world. But it was like how I tried to come down from my overthinking day. And embodiment has been the solution to that also. I don't have bad habits really anymore that harm my body because my body tells me when it doesn't like it, and it doesn't like wine. I just didn't realize that my brain was trying to calm itself down. So I had to learn how to process my own feelings. But for me, it's been really about learning my body is how I calm my mind.
Tell me
So
more about that.
coming into feeling, coming into being in the present moment, your body's always in the present. And your mind will be off in the future, worrying about stuff that might happen or might not happen, probably isn't going to happen. And or in the past, ruminating on stuff that you did or didn't do or should have done or somebody else did. But your body's in the present. And so it's always available to you. You carry it around all over the place. And so when you turn into sensation and start actually feeling what is happening with me right now, right? So the way I'm grounding right now while we talk is by being aware of the feeling of my breath, being aware of the feeling of my pelvis and my butt sitting in my seat, right? Feeling the sensation of my feet on this little foot pad that's all like soft and microfiber that I have. And those things help anchor me and keep me from kind of flying off into headspace. And I think sensation and sensuality and sexuality can do all those things for us too, if we let it and if we feel safe enough. But we have to feel safe enough to be in the present. And so that was something I had to learn through doing a lot of attachment healing, a lot of trauma healing myself. And if the reason you're not in your body is because you have a lot of trauma, then it's really worth it to give yourself the gift of doing the work to release that so that you can be in your body, because it becomes like a positive feedback loop. The more you're in the body, the more nourished you feel and the more resourced you are and the safer you feel.
Would it be fair to say that perhaps women are not experiencing desire problems, but maybe it's a disconnection problem where the head and the body are just completely separate? Or is something else going on?
I think a lot of women, that is what's the case. It's more of an embodiment problem and a
Mhm.
sort of permission to be you and be in your body and feel safe there and feel sovereign there. Body autonomy, right? Feeling like it's yours and it's for you and your pleasures for you and it's not for anybody else and it doesn't have to be performed. You don't have to be perfected. I mean, we have huge industries that are constantly telling us that we're not okay in order to sell us crap that we don't need. It's in their interest to keep us feeling bad about our bodies. And so if that's the relationship with your body where you just feel like it's an object to feel shame over, then of course it's going to be hard to connect to your pleasure.
Mhm.
You're going to be constantly sort of having this almost like 30,000-foot view of just judging, right? Where you're like flying over your body, judging her
Yes.
instead of feeling her from the inside. I know a lot of women, and I used to be in this place where I could kind of know that my vulva was there and like touch it from the outside and feel it, but I couldn't really feel my vulva and vagina from the inside of my body. I couldn't really feel connected to my sexual energy in that whole like pelvic region from the inside of me without thinking about it more like externally as an object for somebody else or as something that was supposed to do something for me. Like this is supposed to it's almost like a machine. Like I'm supposed to like push button A and get orgasm out of slot B.
Gosh, I never thought of it like that, but I'm really digging all your metaphors, Laura. Like when
I
you're
have a lot
explaining
of
it,
metaphors.
like
Sometimes I
that
get
actually makes a
stressy.
lot of sense. So, how do you help someone who has been disconnected with their mind and their body for years start to move into this place where we reconnect everything?
So in my practice, we do this based on where the person's at and a real assessment of their nervous system state. Do they feel safe enough to be in their body? There is absolutely no point in trying to give somebody exercises to be in their body if they don't feel safe enough to do it. So, how do we build that safety for you? What kind of reparative experiences do you need to have? And because I'm a coach, that's where I work, right? I'm not a therapist. I'm not sitting there sort of disconnected from somebody just talking at them. We're actually going to give you the reparative relationship experiences that you might need. It might mean de-shaming with somebody, where you can speak something that you're ashamed of and have it be heard and have someone stay in connection with you. It might be having somebody approach you with really deep attuned consent and really just allow, my practice is not sexual with my clients. We have everything's clothes on, there's no genital touch, but there is touch involved. So having somebody approach your body and say, how do you want to be touched? Maybe we practice on the arm or something like that, where you get to feel into what feels okay, what pace feels good, having somebody be deeply responsive to what you actually need. Some of those things start calming the nervous system in a way that people can start tuning into their body in a kind of in a held container of safety. So it really depends on where you're starting. And so we want to make that assessment and not run roughshod over what you actually need based on where you're at. And then there's a lot of real, just practical embodiment exercises and practices that I give people, because because it's in your body, it's like a sport, right? You got to practice it. It's experiential, and you build those literal muscles through practice, not from somebody just telling you do X, Y, or Z, right? Nobody's learning how to play soccer by reading a book on soccer or having somebody tell them how to play soccer. You got to actually go and try and have it be hard and start with easy exercises and start learning and then practicing, right? And then that's what builds confidence too. And it makes people feel like, oh, I get this. I know how to do this, because everybody has the capacity. You just might have been trained out of it, but you were born with the capacity, right? So that's kind of the process.
I really want to highlight the practice part of it. Just like with sex or being confident, these are not innate qualities that we were born with. They're things we have to learn by trial and error. And sometimes we fall down, we have to get back up and dust ourselves off. But practice does make progress. And the more that we work that muscle, the stronger that we can become. So I want to know, for our listeners, what's one small way that they might be able to reconnect with themselves today or after listening to this episode?
Yeah. So one thing I always recommend people try to do is really practice with feeling your genitalia from the inside of your body. And you can do that with a little bit of breath, where you imagine bringing the breath down to your pelvic floor. You might do like a really gentle, not a hard one, but like a really gentle Kegel or a pelvic floor contraction, and release all that tension with the breath, where you just start noticing how it feels to actually have your genitals be part of your consciousness from the inside of your body. And the more you do that, like connect with your pussy, connect with your cock, the more you do that, the easier it will be for you to kind of drop into a sense of like, here I am. And your mind is building neural connections too. So from the science side of things, you're actually increasing your ability to perceive sensation. So just spending 5 minutes a day trying to feel your sense of your vulva and your vagina from the inside of your body is a huge gift to yourself and your sexual pleasure.
Is it possible that in people that their body is trying to communicate desire to them and they're just not paying attention to it?
There was a study at the University of Vermont many years ago that showed that in college students, they showed them porn and they attached little electrodes or whatever to their genitals. And the college age boys are men and women are girls. They were both experiencing tangible genital arousal, but the people who were in like the assigned female at birth camp, the women could not reliably tell that they were aroused. So
Interesting.
they were turned on physically, but their brains hadn't decided that meant there was desire. And I think there's a few factors with that. One is that we're really trained as girls to not pay attention to our genitals. Like ours are
Mhm.
tucked away and nobody's really sharing what they look like. And we're really shamed about them and about their existence at all. And so I think there's a real sort of shame-based disconnect. But then there's also a safety aspect where girls are taught that it's not safe to be sexual, that it's not acceptable to be sexual. And so might really like put the kibosh on their own sense of, is this an okay time for me to be feeling desire and feeling arousal and just not paying attention. So I think we can really increase that, but with intentionality. But I do think a lot of times people might even be feeling some desire, but just feel like even in modern life, like as adults, you're just kind of like, I don't have time for this, or the kids could walk in, or I really should do the laundry. And all
Mhm.
that stuff, all that brain gunk is stuff up in your head is overriding your body's signal of, hey, maybe a little pleasure might feel nice right now.
Yes. All right. So now that we understand desire and arousal a little bit better, I'd love to shift into mismatched libido because this
Sure.
is something I see so much at my events with my coaching clients where one partner wants it more than the other partner. Why do you find mismatched libido is so common? And why does it feel so personal to people when it's happening?
Yeah, people really read a lot into it. So oftentimes the higher libido partner will automatically start feeling rejected
Hmm.
by their partner doesn't want to have sex at the same frequency as them. And I think this is also a lot related to just how we're socialized around sex, that we don't talk about it. We don't normalize variation in desire, and we don't make it clear that one person not having access to desire right now doesn't mean that you as their partner are not a desirable person. And so people often hang their I think as we start going through puberty and sex becomes something that kids start talking about and start being interested in, it becomes like a status thing and a validation thing. If this person wants me, if I'm sexy, I'm validated. Of more value to this community. And oftentimes we don't grow out of that. And we see it reflected in media and in porn. And we start sort of saying, okay, these people are sexy. These people are allowed to be sexy. Sex is for these quote unquote sexy people. If my partner doesn't want me, that must mean I am not sexy or of lower value. None of that's the case. Somebody could just be going through a challenge with their own connection to themselves and their permission to even have desire. But as soon as their partner takes it personally, it becomes an emotional landmine. And it just gets worse without intervention because the person who has high libido starts kind of oftentimes will, because they take it personally, they'll either be withdrawn or they'll kind of sulk or they'll pressure their partner. And then now all of a sudden, sex is really for somebody else. And the person with low desire is being told it's not okay for you to be where you're at. If you don't want to have sex with me right now, I'm going to withdraw emotionally. And now there becomes this really dysfunctional relationship dynamic where they're feeling obligated to have sex for someone else, which is the biggest killer of desire. That will just knock a libido down right away, is when you say, I don't care what you want, you should have sex for me. That is the quickest way to kill somebody else's libido,
Yeah. And treat them
right?
like a human sex toy.
Exactly. You're treating them like a human sex toy. You're pulling away the emotional connection. You're saying, you must do this or I'm not going to stay in and like emotionally connected to you. So now there's all these high stakes. Everything just gets really fraught and it really impacts couples. And it's one of the leading causes of divorce.
Yeah.
So it makes total sense when you get into this emotional loop with it that it's really problematic. And it doesn't help you solve it, is the problem. It just makes it worse and worse. It tends to just like compound over time. And that's one of the reasons why I really care about helping couples with this, because there is a way out of it, but it's not through like what you're going to find on the internet. It's not through like scheduling sex. Don't do that when somebody feels obligated already. No. Really backfires, right? Like bringing toys on your partner when they're already feeling obligated and that you're pressuring them for sex. No. Like really going to backfire. So there's really good ways to get out of it, but it's not a super quick fix.
Yeah. I often suggest in situations like you're describing to take sex off the table and focus on sensual touch, non-genital touch, focusing on communication and rebuilding the intimacy. But I'm curious for you, how do you suggest people get on the same team with that mismatched libido?
Yeah, well, that's exactly what I suggest is getting on the same team is actually the first step, because what's been happening typically if there's a mismatched libido is it's a really oppositional dynamic, like my needs versus your needs.
Mhm.
That's the trap, is me versus you. And if instead we can get on the same team and start being, okay, we have a disconnect in our sex life that is starting to kind of poison our relationship. We have a relationship challenge. How do we address this together in a way that feels safe and supportive for both people without creating obligation or like non-consent situations here? And so that's step number one, is actually getting out of the like me versus you mindset and starting to look at it collaboratively. And that there's just wounds here. There's wounds for both people that need to be repaired. So what you're suggesting, pausing on sex, especially penetrative sex
Mhm.
or even oral sex some of the time, and really going back to basics on rebuilding the connection, the communication, the freedom to say what you want and what you don't want. Oftentimes we really need to respect the no for a while until the person can have access to their yes. Because if their no hasn't been respected, they're going to be building up barricades to try to
True.
protect it. And so it just gets higher and higher. We have to bring down those barricades, but the only way to do that is to really show that you're 100% on board with their no, and that it's okay and you want to be there for what they want. And so both really reconnecting with both people with what they like, what feels pleasurable, going to the sensual before the sexual, all that stuff that you were talking about is a really good idea.
It really is about making a shift. And I do think that we are stuck in these roles, going back to what you said earlier about the patriarchy and how it affects everybody is, we grow up with these roles of how we're supposed to do sex. And I think especially as we get into midlife when we're just like, I'm fucking tired and I'm taking care of my parents and my kids and my
Mhm.
body is different and like everything else is happening. It's almost like a breaking point. Do you find that the shift is different in midlife, or is this just pretty much across the board for you with your clients?
I think that what you just said about the being over it is often a little heavier in midlife, and people have been tolerating for a while and often have gotten to the real rock bottom of the mismatched libido problem
Mhm. Mhm.
more in midlife. And earlier, I have had quite a few clients in their 20s and 30s who have had mismatched libido for various reasons. And the problem is essentially the same, but it's often just hasn't. They come to me earlier, and oh my gosh, giant kudos to them. They have not waited 28 years to also they found me earlier, so they're lucky because I get a lot of people who have gone to couples therapists or counselors who know absolutely nothing about sexuality. Most of them
Mhm.
don't. Or they've gone to sex therapists who really don't know how to deal with relational dynamics and are much better with more like sexual compulsions or pathology issues
Yeah.
than with sort of normal everyday, like we aren't, this is just a libido mismatch and it's a really complicated dynamic, but it requires somebody who actually has a somatic lens and can help you work with your body because that's where desire lives and not just talk about it. And most sex therapists are trained in just talk. So what I see in midlife is that people have either found the wrong help for too long or just avoided it for too long instead of actually saying, hey, this is just going to get worse and we need to go get help. And so that's the big difference I see in midlife is that it's just got so much more weight and momentum.
When we had our pre-interview, you had mentioned disembodied consent. Can you explain that to our listeners?
So this is where you are telling yourself you should want the sex or you think that you should want the sex. And so you are having sex based on your brain telling you that you need to be having sex or you should be having sex when your body actually isn't on board. Like you're pushing through your own boundaries. And this happens a lot, especially for women, but I've also seen it with some men. And women, it happens a lot for in particular, and the men I've seen it happen for also have sort of a family history of this. But almost all girls are socialized to be over caretakers, where we're over caretaking for other people at our own expense and not holding our own boundaries. So when you're over caretaking a partner with sex, you could be giving sex when you actually don't want to have it, but you're capitulating or people pleasing with sex. And that's a disembodied consent. That's your body's not on board, your brain is overriding it. And what happens a lot of times is a loss of sensation, a loss of libido, even sexual pain can come from this. And if you have sexual trauma in your past, you're really prone to this.
Mhm.
But what I found was there's a really intense grief that is there that needs to be processed because you have overridden your own body. You've damaged the relationships that you have with your body. And it's absolutely possible to process that and deal with that grief and move forward in big joy, big joy. But it is an important thing to acknowledge if it's something that you've done because it does cause real harm. And
It's
you're
like
kind of making your partner like a inadvertent perpetrator. And it's not very fair to them either. And there can be a lot of resentment towards the partner for even for what they wanted or what they were asking for instead of actually acknowledging that you're the one who overrode your own boundaries.
mm,
Right. So we can be taking it out on a partner, either just through like being snippy or through pushing them away or blaming them or just feeling badly towards them. But we've kind of put them in that position by not even upholding our own boundaries. The only person who knew them was us. So there's a little bit of responsibility taking that has to happen
yeah.
and some repair with yourself and often your partner too.
Yeah, I'm stuck between being here in this moment with you and then also like having some old brain thoughts of past Jennifer, of like really being able to relate to what you're saying and just also recognizing how we can be disconnected from our mind, our body, our soul, and how beautiful it really can be when we work and practice to bring it all back together again.
Yeah, when it's all back together, it's way more fun.
Yeah. Yeah.
Life is way more fun.
I also think about not beating yourself up for what you've done in the past with not being connected fully and just understanding that younger version of you was doing the
Mm,
best that they could.
100%.
And now today you have more skills and knowledge than you did at that younger time.
Yeah.
I'm saying this to me and to all of our listeners too.
Yes, for sure. For sure. So this is not about blaming yourself either, but acknowledging impact,
Yeah.
acknowledging impact and repairing with yourself. There's a real process of repairing with your past self and forgiving yourself and also resolving to not treat yourself that way moving forward. And then
Mhm.
learning how to do that. If there's gaps, if you still are tempted to people please with sex, if you're tempted to try to manage your partner's emotions with your own body when you don't want to actually have that sex, or you don't want to be doing whatever those acts are, or it's not your pace. That's a way that sometimes people maybe they do want to be having sex, but the pace or like what's happening is actually not the right fit for their body. That's another way to have disembodied consent. And you can override yourself that way. Resolving to not do that and then to get whatever help you need to support you in putting that into place and in being seen and witnessed in your grief process, if that's something that's going to be supportive for you, and normalizing that most people do need help with this stuff. Most
Yes.
people really need help with this. I needed help with it. All my clients obviously needed help with it, which is why they come to me. And you don't have to do it on your own. And I'm sure your clients too, they reach out to you, reach out to a professional who can help you because it kind of sucks to have to do it on your own.
One of the biggest things people will say to me, typically in our first session or maybe even in the consult call, is, oh, like, I wasn't sure if I should reach out to you because, like, I'm not having the kind of sex I want or I'm not having sex. And people that seek out a sex coach typically are not having the sex life of their dreams, which is why they're seeking help. So, is it
Exactly. If everything, our goal is to get you to where everything feels wonderful and you
Yeah,
feel completely able to fly solo. Wonderful. But chances are you're going to need some support before you get there. And that
exactly.
makes
Yeah.
total sense. And there's nothing to be ashamed of about that. It's really normal. All my clients are smart, capable people. They
Yes.
just like I am, but I still need help with things and I need an outside perspective and somebody who can be a guide. And I think I just want to normalize that if that discussion about disembodied consent or any of this is hitting kind of hard, it makes sense and you don't have to be alone in it.
There is help out there. And sometimes, it's not that you're broken. You just might need like a little glow up or a little zhuzh or something.
Exactly. Don't we all want a sexual and erotic zhuzh? Yes.
Yes. So, Laura, before we wrap up today, I have a couple rapid fire myth busting
Okay,
questions I'd
great.
love to ask.
I love it. Let's do it. That
Are cool.
sounds fun. It's
I'll
like
do
a
my
hot seat
answer
thing.
too. But
Okay.
yeah, I want to hear what you say. Okay. All right. So, true or false, long term relationships kill desire?
False.
Agreed. Totally false.
Yeah.
All right. Next one. What's the biggest myth about low libido?
It's dysfunctional. I actually think it's often a functional response to a dysfunctional situation.
I think mine would be that it's always going to be like that. And you're just going to have low libido for the rest of your life. I think it
Yeah.
can sometimes be situational.
But there's also the myth that it's like mostly women, which it's not necessarily. So
Oh,
there's a lot
yeah.
of myths. There's so many myths.
I know. Like, we could do a whole
Pick
episode
one.
on
So many.
All right. What is one thing couples should stop doing immediately?
Obligation sex.
I would say probably don't bring your phone to bed.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
The phone's out of the bedroom. All right. Last one. What is one thing couples should start doing tonight?
Ah, being more honest out loud. There's a lot of undercurrents. People are trying to read each other. They're trying to convey things without actually speaking about them, which usually means passive aggression. There's all kinds of like myths that, we imagine how our partner feels, but we actually don't know. And it's okay to ask questions and talk about it. And it's okay to say what you want and what you don't want. it's actually really kind to let someone know where you're actually at and ask where they're actually at. And I just wish more people would do that.
I would say actually being engaged in the conversation. So if you find yourself, yeah, sort of distracted when you're talking, maybe take a moment, take a breath, and when you're speaking to your partner tonight, be fully engaged and fully focused in what the conversation is about. Make them feel seen, heard, validated.
I love that too.
Yeah. Like a hat, put it on, see how it feels. So, Laura, if someone is listening right now and they're feeling broken or disconnected, what do you want them to know?
I just want you to know that you're definitely not broken. You may need a little zhuzh, as we said.
Yeah.
It can be really fun and the most rewarding thing of your entire life to heal this, because really it's about, at the end of the day, this is about your power and your aliveness. And sexuality touches everything. Even just your entitlement to safety and freedom and a sense that you're worthy of having needs and it's okay for you to have desires. All of that really echoes out into the rest of your life. So if you're thinking about, prioritizing some other aspect of your life because you think that's the most important thing, or you want to buy a fancy new car to impress people or something, I would say, or a designer handbag or whatever it is, just stop. Prioritize judging your erotic self, because everything else will be better in the future.
Last question. Where can our listeners find you and what do you have going on that you're excited about to share?
You can find me at the Pleasure Uprising podcast. Desire, attachment, and the sex you actually want is the stuff we're talking about.
Yes.
And I also have I just launched it today.
Wow.
Substack, also called Pleasure Uprising. It is the written home where I'm putting the research synthesis. I am a former biology professor. I do a lot of somatic and attachment work and trauma release work. I'm putting a whole synthesis of what we actually know about this stuff in terms that are accessible to real people, plus client stories of how we implement it in ways that really make change in people's lives and let people see that some inspiration and some real life struggles. So I'm super excited about the Substack. It's laurajurgens.substack.com. So easy. So Pleasure Uprising and the Substack are the two best places to find me. And you can interact with me in both of those places.
Amazing. I'll be sure to have Laura's information in the show notes as well for listeners. So it'll be an easy thing for you to go check out. Laura, thank you again so much for today. I truly enjoyed this conversation. I felt a lot of what you were saying on a soul level. I just really enjoyed this moment with you today. So thank you so much for your time and your expertise.
Thanks so much, Jennifer. It's just been absolutely wonderful to talk with you.
Yeah. Listeners, your body isn't broken. It's been trying to talk to you the whole time. And I hope that you get something out of this conversation today that's going to help you feel more embodied and move toward whatever makes you feel happy and desired.
And that's a wrap on this episode of Sip with Summers, where we laughed, learned, and probably said clitoris more times than your high school health teacher ever did. If you liked what you heard, be a gem and leave a review, share it with your favorite group chat, or send it to that friend who really needs to hear this. You know the one. For more tips, tools, and slightly inappropriate jokes, follow me on social or head to summersoflove.com. Until next time, stay curious, stay turned on, and as always, keep sipping.